Hey everybody, welcome back to Foil Labs. It's spring is here and the sun is really warm, and I think all of us New Zealanders here who are just about at the end of level 4 lockdown really keen to get back out on the water. But anyway, here's a good opportunity to share a few more tips. I had a question from a person who was watching one of my videos, a guy called Simon Harding, I believe, and I thought I'd respond to his question about how do you repair chips, like when you're exiting a beach or coming into a beach. You know, looking after your foil is super important. It can just take one little rock or one little pebble with a sharp edge to create a little bit of damage on your foil. So it's, let's learn how to fix those. So I've got a foil here that I don't use very much, and anyway, this one has quite a large chip out of the leading edge, so we'll have a look at how to do that one. And also on the trailing edge here, where it's had a impact and it's sort of split apart the laminates. So I'm just going to show you how we can tackle both of these. Both of them are a little bit of a different technique. For this one, let's tackle this one here first. And just before I start, it's really important, I think, whenever I repair anything, I get everything out that I require. I make sure that my working surface is clean and tidy, particularly really clean and tidy, because, you know, generally there's a rule, and that is when you're mixing resins and glues and fillers, the general rule is if you are untidy and you end up putting it onto your product, you know, when it's gone hard, rock hard, you're going to have to sand all that off. So we want to minimize sanding and prepping, and by keeping your work surface clean and tidy and making sure that you have everything ready, sort of helps to mitigate that. So in front of you, I'll show you, I've got a whole selection of tapes. I've got some little needle files which I'm going to use, a pair of surgical stainless steel scissors, some packing tape which I use quite a bit of, sandpaper, a couple of spikes, stirring stick, a couple of little pads here with some packing tape across them, because we'll use those to pull back the damaged edge, and a clamp and my resin and pot. So everything is ready to go. So with this particular impact here, because it's been hit by a rock, we want to make sure that there's no salt or impurities in here. And I guess it's just like, in a sense, being like a dentist and cleaning out a cavity. So I'm just going to get this needle file in here and just clean this out nice and clean, take all the rubbish out. And any loose bits and pieces, and really and truly it is, I guess, a little bit like being a dentist. I don't want to transfer onto some of the really good edges here. Let's just keep it local and focused on what needs to be repaired. So I've cleaned it out, give it a wipe, make sure it's nice and dry, and I've got my resin which I've mixed up, and in this case, because this is going to be visible, I'm going to use a little bit of this graphite powder again, which you can buy from model shops, and I'm sure you can find that online as well. So I just added a little bit of that in, mix it up. That graphite is really good stuff for repairing cracks. Turns out almost identical color, cracks and scratches, so it's a really good product, really good. And in some cases, if the crack is big, scratch is big, I may add a little bit of filler powder just to make this a little bit thicker, give it a bit more viscosity. So that's ready to go. Now, and in this particular case, what I'm doing is using some packing tape and I know the resin's going to sit on this undersurface here, and I'll just put my tape a little bit above the leading edge, just carefully mold it around with my thumb. That's going to act as a gate to hold the resin in place. And again, on the upper surface, so I'm leaving the top open, and I might just pinch it here and maybe just pinch it there, and then I'll just turn this over, and using a sharp tip, this is a kebab stick, I would very carefully just let that resin filler, let gravity pull it down into where it's going to sit. It's important to be really patient and not rush it. Just carefully work it down. You don't want to really play with it too much. You want no air bubbles. And maybe just by flicking it a couple of times, it's like you see this with concrete layers. Sometimes they use a machine to vibrate and take out all of the air bubbles, and I guess that's exactly what I'm doing here, shaking it, letting the air rise to the top and letting it fill all the gaps. So that's how I would fill a leading edge chip. Okay, now I'm just going to, because actually what I might do is just leave that on there, because I wanted to show you the other one. Let's imagine that that's done and dried, and you come back and wet and dry and finish that off. But now let's have a look at this other one. So bear in mind this is wet, I know that, but there we go. So this is a little bit different, this one here. This is where, if you come in close, and if I use a sharp tool, we can see how the laminate's actually split apart. The trailing edge, because it's a little bit weaker than the leading edge, the impact has split the laminates apart. What we're trying to do is retain all of this integral part of those laminates. I don't want to try and remove it all. I want to try and pull it and pinch it, squeeze it all back together. There's quite a nasty carbon shard there. And maybe what I might do in this case is just shorten that up just a little bit, take that off. So in this case, what I will do is I'm just going to put my sharp tool down in through that split laminate, and oh, hang on, beg your pardon, just clean all of this rubbish out with the needle file. Being careful not to run my finger over it and get all those nasty shards in there. Give it a wipe, make sure it's nice and clean. Right, so again, now I've prepped the surface, pulling those surfaces apart and very, very carefully just pushing some resin back into the split layers of carbon to get it back together. Right, I'm pretty happy with that. And the last thing I would do, I've got two pieces of timber here covered with packing tape. Packing tape is nice and slippery and the resin doesn't stick to it. And the idea is that I will bring these two up and I will clamp it and then pinch these two together. Now I've already done a dry run for this, so I know it's going to work. So again, the top of the two pads is protruding above the trailing edge to act like a little bit of a dam, and Here's my clamp. A bit awkward to do when you need an extra pair of hands. Just turn it around. And now I can fill up that void that was created by the tooling on the other side, just making sure that resin is going to go back into that hole. So there's two different sorts of chips, one on the leading edge as an impact and one on the trailing edge of the foil, like it would be exiting over a rock and peeling back the trailing edge and creating separation in those laminates. So both of those different techniques, I would wait until it's nice and dry and then remove the packing tape and these tools here, and then using the same fairing techniques with wet and dry sandpaper, just finish it off nice, and then finally just polish it up, and it should be as good as gold. Just remember that those two chips and scratches haven't compromised the strength of the foil. If we had major damage on a foil that compromised the strength and structure, then that would be a completely different way of repairing a foil. So there's another tip for you, and thanks for the questions, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.